Now, as the world braces for more U.S. taxes on imports, President Trump says he'll be very kind to America's trading partners when he unveils further tariffs this week. Mr. Trump said the import taxes would be announced potentially by tonight, but probably on Wednesday. Correspondents say, though the extent of the tariffs is far from clear, there's widespread nervousness about the implications at home and around the world. The US president has suggested all countries could be affected, and the EU has warned that it is poised to retaliate if the bloc is included.
I think this is going to be an amazing, I call it a lot of different names, but it's really, in a sense, it's a rebirth of a country, because how we could have afforded to do what we did. We help everybody, and they don't help us. We are going to be very nice by comparison to what they were. The numbers will be lower than what they've been charging us, and in some cases maybe substantially lower, but we sort of have a world obligation perhaps. But we're going to be very nice. Relatively speaking, we're going to be very kind. Somebody said that about me the other day. They said, who doesn't know me very well, they said, "You're such a kind person." And I said, "Say that again." They said, "You're a kind person." I said, "I've never heard that before." It was a weird statement. I was kind.
Who said that?
I've heard of words that, I don't know, I better not tell you. I've been called a lot of things, but it's sort of a different kind of a word. It's like an old-fashioned word, isn't it? It could be next month, maybe a little bit later, yeah. And we're going to Qatar also. And also we're going to possibly a couple of other countries. UAE is very important. It's a great leader in UAE. And I had his brother here the other night, if you saw that.
Vintage Donald Trump. Well, staying in the US, the president has now been in office for 2.5 months, and the Midwestern swing state of Wisconsin could give a sense of how voters feel about him so far. A crucial Supreme Court election takes place today, and it's become the most expensive judicial race in US history. The world's richest man and Mr. Trump's ally, Elon Musk, has pumped millions of dollars into the race and has been actively campaigning in the state for the Republican candidate, doing $1 million giveaways to voters. The state's top lawyer, a Democrat, tried to block it, saying gifts for votes breaks state laws, but the Supreme Court declined to hear the case. If the Republican candidate wins, the Supreme Court in Wisconsin will flip to a conservative majority. So far, it's not clear if Mr. Musk's efforts will prove successful. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from London by the Republican strategist and chair of Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Swenson. Lovely to see you, Greg. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So the most expensive judicial race in US history taking place today. How high are the stakes?
Charles, it's a great question. I think they're pretty high. Normally, as you've referenced, these local judicial races don't get much attention. They surely don't get the kind of campaign money that's going into them. But Wisconsin in particular is important because the activist judges on the left have been basically legislating from the bench. And it's really important for the Republicans to win. But perhaps more importantly is to just have participation, whichever way you like to vote, whichever candidate you like. It's important to get out the vote. And what happens in these quiet off-year elections is the turnout is very low. So just a few people can make the difference. So it is an important race. Wisconsin obviously is a swing state. It's a purple state. But lately, the last few years, the activist judges in the state Supreme Court have basically been legislating from the bench. So this is a big deal.
So, I mean, if the Republican candidate wins, the Supreme Court in Wisconsin will flip to a conservative majority. And I understand it's become a sort of referendum as well on Mr. Trump's popularity after 2.5 months in office.
Yeah, Probably, I assume that the Democrats are trying to make it a referendum on his popularity. I'm not sure that will work because he's still much more popular than he was in his first term if you look at the polling. But I think that this is a case where the Wisconsin is, again, it's a purple state, it's a swing state. But the problem with activist judges is they legislate from the bench. And if you don't like a candidate, if you like a particular law, or you swing one way or the other in terms of political leanings, well, then vote for the legislature. The legislatures make the law. Judges should not be actively or activist legislating from the bench. And so what's happened with some of the more activist judges, the Democrat judges, if they don't like a law, they legislate by judging one way or the other. I think that's a mistake. I think the Republican judges are only arguing that, okay, we'll do what the law says. We'll do what the legislature says. If there's a dispute, we might, arbitrate on that. But this is again, it's an important moment because the Wisconsin Supreme Court has been very activist. And if a voter in Wisconsin is a Democrat or is a liberal, well, then great. Go vote for your liberal legislature. Go vote for your liberal state senator or state representative. But don't legislate from the bench. And I think that's why this is important.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, Greg, because Elon Musk, the world's richest man and President Trump's ally, has thrown himself into the mix. He's been doing $1 million giveaways to voters. I mean, isn't that sort of overt voter inducement illegal?
No, well, in this case, it's not. Encouraging people to vote is not illegal. What is illegal is when you encourage people to vote, but you only encourage people from one party or the other to vote. And that's what happened in 2020 with so-called Zuckerbucks, when Mark Zuckerberg he threw $400 million into the election, but they only were focusing on Democrat-leaning districts. So the idea is, if you want to donate to a campaign, you're free to do that. And then it's completely acceptable and legal to go out and recruit people to vote for your candidate or your party. But if it's just a general get out the vote contribution, it has to be, allegedly equal or not be, it can't be partisan is the best way to explain it. So what Elon Musk is doing is encouraging people to vote. He's not saying necessarily vote one way or the other. Now, George Soros has been doing this for generations, and George Soros was effectively behind swinging a lot of the state judges, state district attorneys toward the defund the police movement, the bail reform movement, which led to really much higher crime rates in America, especially in the big cities. So it's kind of about time a conservative billionaire started throwing some money around, if you want to make that argument. But I do, George Soros has been doing this forever. Other really wealthy Democrats. Money is important in American politics. I'm not suggesting that it's perfect, but money talks in elections, and I'm glad at least there's some money coming from both sides, not just the Democrats.
Well, I mean, Elon Musk has made it very clear that he's supporting the Republican candidate, and he's trying to induce voters to vote for the Republican candidate.
I know.
That's making many voters uncomfortable because, I mean, essentially, it looks like he's buying the election.
Yeah, no, I've made that argument about George Soros and other big Democratic donors over the years. It's obvious that Elon Musk is a Republican now. Anyway, he's only been a Republican for a year or so, but that is part of the electoral process. It's free speech is the basic argument. So if Elon Musk wants to throw money around, if George Soros or others like George Soros want to throw money around, they're welcome to do that. And I being a partisan would prefer that they throw the money toward Republicans, but in this case, his basic defense is that this is just get out the vote money. And this is important to understand, Charles. Like the problem is Republicans typically don't vote in these off-year elections, these local off-year elections. And Democrats are much better at getting out the vote. And I think we saw that in Pennsylvania last week, where a relatively obscure state Senate seat was up for a special election, and very few people voted. In the general election, the presidential election in November, 94,000 people voted from this county. And yet last week or 2 weeks ago, only 15,000 people voted. So when the turnout is that low, the outcome can be swung by a very small number of people. And I think that's what Elon Musk and others like him are trying to avoid. Get out the vote, let everybody vote. Doesn't matter which party you favor, as long as there's participation.
Well, I mean, the latest poll suggests that more than half the voters in Wisconsin do not look at Mr. Musk favorably, with many believing he's destroying American democracy. And I mean, obviously, I expect that's given a glimmer of hope to those on the left. But beyond this election in Wisconsin, Greg, beyond it being a sort of referendum on President Trump's work so far, will it also deliver a verdict on Elon Musk and how much of a political force he is?
Yeah, look, Elon Musk is a very provocative and disruptive public person, right? And I don't imagine everyone likes him. That's why the crazy Democrats on the left are burning Teslas, which is not a good sign for democracy, if you want to talk about that. But look, I mean, Elon Musk is trying to fix the federal government and save taxpayers' money and stop waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. I don't know why that makes him a villain of some sort. And so, besides being a great American and also a great innovator, many in America look up to him as a great disruptor in terms of what he's done in business. So I'm not suggesting everybody has to agree with his politics, but he's not some evil man that's trying to wreck the country. Quite to the contrary, he is actually trying to liberate Washington and stop the abuse, waste, and fraud. I don't know why that makes him a bad guy.
On that note, I want to thank you as ever.
Thanks, Charles.
Greg Swenson, thank you very much indeed. He is a Republican strategist and chair of Republicans Overseas UK, and he was talking to me on the line there from London.